Marisol stood at the edge of the quiet park, her fingers tracing the pattern of cracks in the old stone bench. Every evening since Mateo moved to the city 3 months ago, she came here and watched the sun slip below the trees. The sky turned pink and gold, and she felt a familiar tug of sadness in her chest. She missed him more than she had expected. They had grown up playing on these benches and chasing fireflies in summer. Now, the laughter they once shared felt like a distant echo. Marisol closed her eyes and pictured Mateo's easy grin, the way his eyes sparkled when he told a joke. She wanted to hear his laughter again, but she didn't know how to reach him. She pulled her phone from her pocket and stared at the screen. Mateo's number was there, but the thought of calling made her heart pound. What would she say? "Hi, I miss you." It felt too small. What if he was too busy? What if he didn't feel the same longing she felt? A soft breeze rustled the leaves. Overhead, Marisol straightened and tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. She folded up her phone and slipped it back into her pocket. Well, she had always been the brave one, never the type to run from a challenge. If she could face down a thunderstorm while sailing with her grandfather, she could find a way to talk to Mateo. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. On its cover, she had drawn the two of them under a fireworks skyer, holding a sparkler and him tossing his head back in laughter. Inside, the pages were blank, waiting for new memories. Marisol sat down and opened to the first page. She wrote, "Dear Mateo, I miss you." Simple words, but they held all her hope. She paused, tapping the tip of her pen against her lip. Then she began to write about the day before he left. The smell of coffee in her grandmother's kitchen. The sound of his suitcase wheels on the front porch. The hug they shared that felt too quick. She wrote until the page was full, her pen dancing across the lines. When she finished, she closed her notebook and slipped it into an envelope. She stood and walked toward the community mailbox at the end of the path. Each step felt heavy, but also right. She pushed the letter through the slot and watched as it disappeared inside. She didn't know when he would read it, but she trusted that he would. That night, Marisol paced her room, listening for the ping of a message. She stared at her phone, willing it to light up. Hours passed. She did her homework, made a cup of tea, and still nothing. She sank onto her bed and cradled her phone too. Her chest, the silence felt louder than any noise, but she refused to give up. The next morning, she set out before dawn, sunrise painting the world in soft colors. She went to the park again, notebook in hand. She wrote another letter, one filled with questions. How was his first week? Did he find new friends? Was the city as bright as he had imagined? She folded the paper carefully and sent it on its way. Each day, Marisol found a new way to reach out. She learned to sketch postcards with scenes from home the old oak tree. By the school, the pond where ducks swam, the bakery window glowing with fresh bread. She mailed them with brief notes. I hope this makes you smile, or sending you a piece of home. And with every postcard sent, her chest felt a little lighter. Weeks passed. One afternoon, as Marisol walked through the park, her phone buzzed. She stopped in her tracks and stared at the screen. A message from Mateo. Your postcard arrived today? I smiled so hard I almost dropped my coffee. I miss you too. Her breath caught. She pressed her lips together to hold back a laugh of relief, then she tapped out a reply. I'm so glad. Can we video chat tonight? That evening they met on the screen. Marisol's room glowed with fairy lights. Mateo's background showed a city skyline at dusk. For a moment, they just stared, taking each other in. Then Marisol grinned and held up her notebook. Mateo laughed and pointed at the cover drawing. They talked for hours. Marisol told him about the new puppies at the animal shelter and the arrival of spring flowers. Mateo described the crowded streets and the strange, delicious food he had tried. He told her about his lonely nights, and she realized he felt the distance almost as keenly as she did. As they spoke, Marisol felt hope bloom in her chest. She saw the sparkle return to his eyes. She remembered why they had been friends in the first place, their shared curiosity, their bold willingness to face life's trials, and their belief in each other. When they finally said goodnight, Marisol felt a joy she had almost forgotten. She shut her laptop and lay back on her bed, the ceiling lights glowing like distant stars. She knew they were far apart, but she felt closer than ever. Humanity was bold. It reached across oceans and galaxies, across time and distance, because it refused to give up on the people it loved. Marisol smiled to herself. No matter how far Mateo had gone, she would always find a way to connect, and she knew he would do the same. In her heart, she carried the promise of every letter sent, every postcard drawn, every video call made. She carried the unbreakable truth that hope could bridge any gap, and that sometimes all it took was a simple message: I miss you. Marisol woke before sunrise, her heart heavy with longing. The first light of day slipped through her curtains, but it did not warm her chest as it once did. Today marked 2 months since Mateo had moved away, and although they spoke sometimes by video, the distance still felt like a wall between them. She dressed slowly, choosing her favorite blue sweater Mateo had always told her it brought out. The color of her eyes, pulling it on. She felt a small spark of courage. She would not let sadness win today. She carried her notebook with her as she walked to the park. The pages were filled with sketches and letters, each one a small bridge to Mateo. But lately, the entries had dried up. What more could she say? She sat on the old stone bench and opened the notebook to a blank page. Her pen hovered above the paper, but no words came. She pressed her lips together and closed her eyes, remembering the laughter they shared. That memory alone felt like a promise that they could find joy again, no matter how far apart. A gentle breeze rustled the trees above her, and a bird sang nearby. Marisol looked up and smiled at the small scene of life. She thought of her grandfather, who always said, "When the world feels big, look for the small wonders." She reached into her bag and pulled out a smooth pebble she had found on the beach last summer. She held it between her fingers, feeling its cool weight. Then she dipped her pen in ink and wrote at the top of the page, "Small wonders connect. Us." Underneath, she sketched the pebble, the bench, and a tiny bird. The simple drawing made her heart lift. That afternoon, Marisol went to the local art supply store. She had an idea. If words and postcards could show Mateo she cared, maybe something more tangible would help. She picked out a small wooden box and bottles of bright paint. At home, she laid out newspaper on her desk and began to paint the box in warm colors: sunset, orange, soft pink, and hopeful yellow. On the lid, she painted a flight of birds taking off into the sky, each one leaving a small trail of stardust. As her brush moved, her sadness eased. She felt connected to Mateo through every careful stroke. When the paint dried, she opened the box and filled it with small tokens: a pressed flower from the park, a smooth pebble, and a folded paper crane. She wrote a note on white cardstock for when you need to remember home. She slid the note and tokens inside and shut the lid. Oh, the box felt heavy and full of meaning. That night, Marisol wrapped it in colored paper and tied it with twine. She addressed the package to Mateo's new address and sealed it with a small heart sticker. As she walked to the mailbox, she whispered, "I care about you," as if the words might travel faster than the post. Days passed. Marisol tended to her routine: school, homework, small chores. Yet every spare moment, her mind drifted to Mateo. She wondered if he had received the box. She worried it might arrive too late or get lost. But she refused to yield to doubt. She remembered how humans pushed across oceans and built bridges with stone and steel. They carried hope like a torch and passed it hand to hand. She would carry her hope too until Mateo felt its light. One evening, her phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was a photo from Mateo. In it, he held the painted box in his hands, his expression bright. Around him, the city lights glowed. His message read, "Your gift arrived today. It is beautiful. I feel closer to home already." Marisol's eyes filled with happy tears. She pressed her hand to her heart and let out a breath she hadn't known she held. Her hope had reached him. That weekend, they arranged another video call. Marisol set up her desk so the painted box sat beside her laptop. When Mateo appeared on the screen, he smiled wide and held the box up for her to see. "This is the best gift," he said. Marisol grinned back and held up her notebook. "Thank you," she whispered. They talked late into the night, sharing hopes for the future. They planned to visit each other soon. She would go to the city for a holiday, and he would come home in the summer. The distance felt smaller now. After the call ended, Marisol sat quietly and watched the starlit sky outside her window. Felt a calm warmth in her chest. She had felt lost and unsure how to reach out, but she had found a way. Her letters, drawings, and the painted box had been small acts of boldness, acts that spoke louder than words. She knew that as long as she carried her hope and human courage, she could bridge any distance. And she knew Mateo would do the same, no matter where H*. Marisol sat at her desk, the painted box beside her laptop. Sunshine slipped through the window and warmed the wooden surface. Today, she had a new plan. She wanted to make Mateo feel at home again, even if he was miles away. She tapped her finger on the desk and looked at the blank page in her notebook. What could she do next? She remembered how humans told stories around campfires. Stories had power. They could bring people closer, even when they were far apart. Marisol opened a fresh page and wrote at the top, "Our story." Then she wrote the first line, "Once upon a time, two friends made the whole world feel small." She smiled. It sounded hopeful. She spent the afternoon writing down their favorite memories. She described the time they built a treehouse together. The summer thunderstorm they watched as they huddled under its tarp. And the day they raced their bikes down the hill near her house. She wrote each scene in simple words like a story for children, but her heart felt full. Knew these memories were precious. Next, Marisol searched her photo albums. She found pictures of her and Mateo, laughing under bright balloons at her birthday party, feeding ducks by the pond, and painting faces at the school fair. She scanned them with her phone and saved the images in a folder on her computer. Then she remembered an old song they both loved, an upbeat tune that always made them dance. She found it online and downloaded it, with images, text, and music. Ready, Marisol learned how to make a slideshow video. She had never done it before, but she was not afraid of a new challenge. She opened a simple video editor and dragged her photos onto the timeline. She placed her written lines as captions beneath each picture. Then she added the music, matching its beats to the shifting images. She worked carefully, pausing often. To listen and adjust, she wanted it to feel just right. By evening, the video was ready. Marisol watched it from start to finish. The pictures faded in and out, the words floated across the screen, and the song played softly in the background. She felt tears well up, but they were happy tears. She felt that spark of boldness inside her, the part of humanity that refused to give up on connection. She knew this video could reach Mateo's heart. Marisol uploaded the video to a private link and wrote him a message. "I made this for you. It is our story to remind you of home." She sent the link and waited. Again, her heart pounded. She wondered if he would watch it. She pictured him clicking on the link late at night, headphones on, seeing their smiling faces pop up on his screen. That night, she barely slept. She imagined his reaction. Did he feel the same warmth she felt as each image appeared? Would he laugh at the silly captions she added? Would he remember how they danced in her living room to that song? The thought made her smile, even in her dreams. The next afternoon, her phone buzzed. A message from Mateo popped up. "Marisol, I watched your video. I laughed, I cried, I felt like I was right there with you. Thank you." Marisol's chest felt light as if full of floating bubbles. She tapped back. "I'm so glad. Our story is not over." Then she added a wink emoji.
Howling.
They arranged another video call that evening. When Mateo's face appeared, he held his phone so she could see the video on his side. He pointed and laughed at a picture where they wore sibling sunglasses and posed with ice cream. He read aloud one caption, "Summer's best friends." We looked at Marisol and said softly, "We are best friends." Marisol felt hope swell. In her heart, she told him, "I have one more idea." She held up a small cardboard box that she painted like the first one. Inside was a tiny clay model of their treehouse made by her own hands. "Now it is our treehouse brand new," she said. Mateo's eyes widened. He reached inside and touched the tiny clay roof. "I can almost feel the breeze," he whispered. They talked late into the night, planning their next adventure. They dreamed of building a real treehouse together when Mateo visited. They imagined decorating it with fairy lights and stacking cushions for cozy reading corners. As they spoke, the distance between them melted away. After they said goodnight, Marisol lay in bed, her eyes on the ceiling. She thought of all she had tried: letters, postcards, a painted box, and now a video. Each small act was a piece of her hope sent out into the world. Each act showed her bold human spirit. She would not wait for connection to find her. She would carry her hope like a torch and light the way. Marisol closed her eyes and felt calm. She knew that no matter how far away Mateo was, their hearts could stay close. She knew that humans had a special strength. They could stretch their hands across any distance if they simply believed in their own courage and hope. And she believed with all her heart. Marisol woke with a new plan in her mind. Morning. Light peeked through her curtains, and she felt a gentle thrill. She had tried letters, postcards, painted boxes, and even a slideshow video. Each act showed her bold human spirit and her hope to reconnect with Mateo. Yet she still felt a gap between them. Today she decided to send her voice. She sat at her small desk, her old voice recorder in hand. It was a simple device with a red button and a tiny speaker. She pressed record and heard the soft click. Then she spoke in a calm voice, as if Mateo sat beside her. "Hello, Mateo. It's me, Marisol. I want to share something new with you today. Close your eyes and listen." She paused, took a deep breath, and began to tell a story. It was a tale she had loved as a child, about a brave girl who crossed a wide river to find her lost friend. She described the girl's fears, the river's roar, and then the joy when the friends hugged again on the far shore. Her voice trembled with feeling as she spoke of courage and friendship. She wanted Mateo to feel her heart in every word. After finishing the story, she said, "Thank you for listening. I hope this makes you feel close to home." She stopped the recording and played it back. Her voice sounded soft, but strong. She smiled, imagining Mateo listening late at night, maybe in his quiet apartment far away. Next, Marisol decided to add music. She found a simple melody she could play on her old keyboard. The tune was gentle and hopeful. She recorded herself playing the melody behind her voice. The notes rose and fell like a friendly wave saying hello, and she was happy with the mix. She saved the file as a message from Mateo. Then she faced her next challenge: how to send it. Email felt too formal. The recorder could not send files. But she remembered a local radio station that played community messages every evening. People could call in and leave short audio notes. The station host promised to play them on air. It was old-fashioned, but it felt right. That afternoon, Marisol walked to the radio station. The building was small, with bright posters on the walls. She met the host, a kind man named Mr. Reyes. He listened as she explained her idea. He smiled and said, "Humans have used radio to connect for a century. I'll play your message tonight at 7. Marisol thanked him and left, her heart pounding with excitement. She knew it was a risk. What if no one heard it? What if Mateo missed it? But she trusted human hope. She had learned that reaching across distance often meant taking bold steps. That evening, Marisol sat by her window, the recorder tucked in her lap. She turned on the small radio and tuned to the community channel. The clock ticked toward 7. She closed her eyes and waited. At exactly 7, the host's voice crackled through. And now, a special message from Marisol to her friend far away. Her story began. She recognized her own voice telling the tale of the brave girl. Underneath, her keyboard melody drifted softly. Marisol felt tears spring to her eyes as she listened. She pictured Mateo closing his own eyes, hearing each word as a warm embrace. When the message ended, Mr. Reyes spoke again. "That was beautiful, Marisol. Human stories remind us we are never alone." Marisol smiled and whispered into the night, "I hope you heard it, Mateo." The next day was quiet. Marisol went to school and did her best to focus, but her thoughts kept drifting to the radio broadcast. She checked her messages often, waiting for a reply. Finally, late in the afternoon, her phone buzzed. "Marisol, this is Mateo, I heard. Your message on the radio last night? It felt like a hug through the air. Thank you for sharing your voice." I wish I could reply the same way. Marisol's heart soared. She typed back quickly. "I have an idea. Let's record together." Then she called him. On their video call that evening, she held the recorder up to her screen. "Can you record? A message for me? I can play it on the radio here." Mateo grinned and nodded. He spoke into his phone's microphone. Sharing memories of their treehouse and the stormy afternoon, they stayed inside telling jokes. His voice was warm and steady. Marisol saved his recording and took it back to the station. That night at 7, the radio crackled once more. Mr. Reyes introduced. Now, a reply from Mateo to Marisol. Marisol listened as Mateo's voice filled her room. She laughed and cried at the same time, feeling the distance shrink. After the broadcast, Mateo and Marisol talked again on video. They agreed to keep sending radio messages whenever they missed each other. They'd found a new way to connect one. That felt as timeless as human hope itself. Marisol lay in bed afterward, thinking of the river crossing story she told. Just like the brave girl in her tale, she had found a way to cross the gap between her and Mateo. She had used her voice, her creativity, and her warm belief in connection. She felt proud of her human spirit, bold, inventive, and hopeful. As she drifted to sleep, she whispered into the dark room. Marisol woke with a fresh idea humming in her mind. She sat at her desk, where the painted box and voice recorder waited like old friends. She had sent letters, postcards, videos, and radio messages. Each one had carried her hope. Still, she felt the distance with Mateo, as if a thin wall lay between them. Today, she would find a new way to break through. She opened her laptop and stared at the blank screen. Then, she remembered how humans shared stories on walls, long ago paintings, carvings, and maps that guided travelers and told of home. What if she could make a special map for Mateo? One that marked all the places they loved together. Pulled out an old paper map of her town. It was folded and creased, but each crease told a story. By the schoolyard corner, they had raced on scooters. At the bakery on Main Street, they had bought extra pastries. Near the riverbank, they had skipped stones. She spread the map on her desk and traced her finger over each spot. She found her colored markers and began to draw. Around the schoolyard, she doodled little scooters and wrote, "Fast races, best laughs." By the bakery, she drew a loaf of bread and added, "Sweet mornings with you." At the river, she sketched a skipping stone and wrote, "Where our dreams skipped like stones." Each drawing felt like a heartbeat on the paper. When she finished, she photographed the map with her phone and sent the images to her computer. There, she used a simple drawing program to add labels and colors. She traced a dotted line connecting each location, like a path through their shared memories. At each stop, she added a tiny heart. In the center, she wrote, "Our shared journey." Next, Marisol needed a way for Mateo to see and add his own marks. She sent him the map images with a message. "I made this map for us. Can you add your favorite places on your side? Then we can share our world together." Why she attached the images and pressed send. That evening, Marisol could hardly eat her dinner. She thought of the dotted lines, the tiny hearts, and the memories they held. She wondered if Mateo would find it meaningful. She believed humans could build bridges with simple thoughts and shared creativity. In the morning, her phone buzzed. With a reply, "I love it," Mateo wrote. "I added places here in the city." He sent her 4 photos of his own drawn map. On his map, he marked the small park where he jogged, the coffee shop with the best lattes, and a hill that gave him a view of the skyline. He added notes, "Morning runs remind me of our scooter races. This latte tastes like your baking. I watch sunsets here thinking of home." Marisol's heart lifted. She opened his images and saw how he had woven his world into her map. She printed his page and taped it beside hers on her bedroom wall. Together, they formed a larger map one that spanned from her hometown to his new city. That afternoon, Marisol walked through her neighborhood with a sketchbook in hand. She visited the bakery and asked for an extra piece of paper and a few markers. She sat on the bench outside and drew the bakery's window, the potted plants, and the smiling baker who waved at her. She wrote a note. "Here I tasted our favorite cinnamon roll." She slipped the drawing into an envelope addressed to Mateo. Weeks passed, and each week they exchanged new map pages. Marisol drew the old oak tree where they carved their names, and the library where they read books aloud. Mateo sketched the busy market stalls and the quiet canal where he fed ducks. Each map page arrived by mail, and each one filled them with joy. One day, Marisol found a thick envelope in her mailbox. It was heavy, nearly bursting at the seams. Inside were dozens of small map pages stitched together with a bright ribbon. Mateo had created a book, a map journal that held all their shared places and memories. On the cover, he had written, "Journeys together, near or far." Marisol laughed out loud and held the map journal to her chest. She ran her fingers over the ribbon and opened the first page. There, in his neat handwriting, he had added a note. "For all our future adventures, here and beyond." She felt tears of happiness fill her eyes. That evening, she video-called Mateo. She held up the map journal so he could see it. He grinned back, as proud as she felt. "I want to add one more place," he said. "When I visit you next, let's mark a new spot together." Marisol nodded, her heart brimming with hope. They talked late into the night about places they dreamed of exploring: hidden waterfalls, mountain trails, city rooftops. Each idea felt possible now, as if distance no longer mattered. Their shared map had become a living bond, a promise that they would draw new lines of memory side by side. As Marisol shut her laptop and settled into bed, she looked at her wall, where the combined maps glowed under her fairy lights. She felt a calm confidence. She had reached out with creativity and boldness, and she had built a bridge of hope. She knew that humans carried a special strength. They could chart new paths, connect distant hearts, and believe in each other across any gap. With that thought, she whispered into the quiet room, "Good night, Mateo. I'll draw you in my dreams." And she drifted to sleep with a smile. Knowing that their journey was just beginning, Maisel woke to the bright chirping of birds outside her window. Today she felt a quiet excitement. She had tried letters, boxes, videos, radio messages, and maps. Each effort carried her hope to Mateo. Now she wanted to send something living, something that would grow as their friendship did. After school, Marisol walked to the small plant nursery at the edge of town. Rows of green saplings and colorful flowers filled the air with fresh scent. She ran her fingers over young leaves and felt a spark of joy. Then she found it, a small sapling of a flowering dogwood tree. Its slender branches held soft pink buds. She knew this tree would grow tall and strong, just like their bond. She carried the sapling home and cleaned a small clay pot. Carefully, she set the tree into fresh soil, patting it gently around the roots. She watered it with a slow stream, watching the water soak in. Then she tied a simple ribbon around the trunk and attached a note that read, "Plant this and remember that. Our friendship can grow anywhere." She wrapped the pot in sturdy paper and placed it in a box cushioned with straw. That evening, Marisol addressed the package and took it to the post office. The clerk weighed it and smiled at the small tree. "A gift that grows," he said kindly. Marisol nodded, her heart warm. She trusted that humans held a special power to send hope across any distance. Back home, she cared for her own sapling on her windowsill. Each morning she checked the soil, made sure it had enough light, and said, "Quietly grow strong, like our friendship." The routine gave her comfort, a daily reminder that small acts could lead to great change. One afternoon, her phone buzzed with a photo message. It was from Mateo. He held a similar pot in his hands on the balcony of his new apartment. In the pot sat a young sapling with pale green leaves. Beside it, a note read, "Thank you for this gift. I will help it grow." Marisol's chest tightened with happiness. She tapped a reply. "Take good care. It will remind us of home." That night, they arranged a video call. On her screen, Mateo pointed to the little tree and showed her a tiny bud that had opened overnight. "Look," he said, It's flowering. Marisol reached out to touch the screen, imagining the blossom in her own hands. She smiled and said, "Your tree is brave, just like you, just like you." He grinned back, and for a moment the distance between them felt like nothing. Over the next weeks, Marisol and Mateo checked in with each other about the trees. When a new leaf unfurled, she sent him a quick message. When his tree grew taller than his coffee mug, he told her. They shared photos of morning sunlight on the leaves and evening shadows on the branches. Each update felt like a quiet triumph. One day, Marisol spotted ants crawling over the soil of her pot. She worried the tiny creatures might harm the young roots. She carefully shook the pot, brushed away the ants, and sprinkled a little protective grit around the base. Then she sent a photo to Mateo with the message, "Problem solved." He laughed and replied, "You are a great gardener." Marisol felt proud of her human resourcefulness, how she refused to let a small challenge block their connection. As summer deepened, Marisol planned one more surprise. She ordered 2 identical ceramic wind chimes, decorated with flowers and birds. When the trees were big enough to hang them, she wrote Mateo, "Hang this on your balcony, and I will hang mine by the window. When the breeze blows, we will hear the same song." She mailed the chimes in a bright box, thinking of the day they would sing together. That evening, Marisol hung her chime by her bedroom window. As the sun set, a gentle wind stirred, and soft chimes tinkled in the air. Marisol closed her eyes and imagined Mateo hearing the same notes. She felt tears of joy, but they were happy tears. She whispered, "We share this moment." Late at night, her phone buzzed again. A message from Mateo. "I hung the chime on my balcony. I hear it now. Thank you for making me feel close." Marisol stood by her window, listening as the chimes sang a shared melody across miles. In that song, she heard hope and courage to the human spirit that refused to let distance break a bond. As she settled into bed, Marisol looked at her flowering dogwood. Its pink petals caught the moonlight, and she thought of all they had done to stay connected. She knew their friendship would grow season after season, just like the trees, and she felt certain that humans, bold, hopeful, inventive, could bridge any gap with small acts of love. With that thought, she closed her eyes and drifted to sleep, comforted. Marisol sat at her desk one evening, the wind chime's soft song still lingering in her ears. She closed her eyes and thought of Mateo, so far away in the big city. She felt a familiar tug of sadness. She missed sharing moments under the same sky. A new idea came to her. They could meet under the stars, even if they were apart. She opened her laptop and searched for a free star mapping website. Within minutes, she found one that showed the night sky from any place on Earth. She filled in her small town's coordinates, then Mateo's city address. The screen showed 2 sky views, side by side. She saw a bright star, Vega, shining over both places. Mayar smiled. She picked a date and time, next Saturday at 9 p.m. She marked it in her notebook. Star night with Mateo. Then she wrote him a message. "Let's meet under Vega this Saturday at 9. I'll look up at you." She hit send, feeling a spark of hope in her chest. All week she carried that hope with her. In class, her mind drifted to the night sky. She wondered if Mateo would really join. She believed in human courage, the same courage that crossed oceans and built rockets to the stars. Even from afar, they could share this moment. Saturday came, and Marisol set up her small telescope on the porch. She had borrowed it from her neighbor, who let her poke at the lens and practice focusing on distant trees. Now, on the scheduled night, she waited. The sky was clear, dotted with pinpricks of light. She could hardly breathe as the clock hands moved toward 9 at exactly 9. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mateo. "I'm here." Looking up, she tapped a quick reply. "See Vega? Top right." She raised her eyes to the sky, then to her telescope. She focused on the bright star. It twinkled like a friendly eye in the dark. Moments later, Mateo sent a photo of his own view, his phone camera pointing up, capturing the same bright spot in the sky. Marisol's pulse quickened. She typed, We share this star tonight. She felt a warmth spread through her. Under Vega, they were together, even if miles apart. They kept texting as they watched. Mateo told her about the lights of the city. Below him, the sound of traffic in the distance. Marisol described the quiet hum of crickets and the soft rustle of leaves. Each detail made her feel closer to him, as if he stood on her porch instead of far away. After a while, she decided to add another human touch. She grabbed some glow-in-the-dark paint and a small piece of cardboard. She painted Vega's shape and the dotted lines of the Lyra constellation. She let it dry under her lamp, then held it against her telescope eyepiece. When she looked through, the constellation glowed softly against the real stars. She sent a photo of her glowing constellation to Mateo. He replied, "That is amazing." She beamed. She had brought art into the sky. It felt like the bold human spirit taking simple things and making them shine. They talked until late, sharing stories about their day and the stars above. When clouds rolled in, they paused together, waiting for them to pass. Even the clouds felt like a bridge. They knew they watched them both, no matter where they were. When the night grew cold, they said goodnight. Marisol packed away the telescope and stared out at the sky one more time. She whispered, "Good night, Mateo," into the dark air. She knew he was whispering back in his own room. The next morning, Marisol felt a new lightness. She had crossed another gap. She had used the sky, technology, and her own creativity to bring them together. She believed again in human boldness and hoped the power to reach across any space. That evening, a small box arrived for her. Inside was a tiny pin shaped like Vega, sent by Mateo. It had the date and time engraved on the back. Saturday, 9 p.m. She pinned it to her notebook cover. It would remind her that even far apart they could share the same sky. Maricel touched the pin and smiled. She thought of all she had tried. Letters, boxes, videos, radio, maps, trees, wind chimes, and now, stars. Each act had carried her hope, and each act had brought them closer. She felt proud of her human spirit, bold, inventive, always reaching out. As she looked at the night sky that evening, she raised her eyes to Vega. She imagined Mateo looking up too. She knew that under those same stars, their hearts were together, and she whispered into the night, "Until next time, my friend," and she turned inside, her heart full of hope. Mayor woke before dawn, her heart fluttering with excitement. Today she would visit Mateo for the first time since he moved. She had packed her small suitcase the night before, her favorite blue sweater, the painted box, the wind chime, and a tiny star map. Each item felt like a promise between them. She ate a quick breakfast, then kissed her mother goodbye. "Be back soon," she said. Her mother smiled, understanding how important this trip was. Marisol carried her hopes like a torch. She believed that humans could cross any distance when they held on to courage and kindness. On the train platform, Marisol gripped her ticket and watched the rails stretch into the early light. When the train arrived, she found her seat by the window. The landscape past fields, small towns, and gentle hills, she thought of all. The ways she and Mateo had stayed connected. Letters, videos, maps, even shared wind chimes. After a few hours, the train slowed into the city station. Marisol felt a thrill as she stepped onto the platform. The city buzzed with people and noise. Tall buildings rose around her and bright signs glowed. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that bravery meant stepping into the unknown. She followed her phone's directions to the little cafe where she and Mateo had agreed to meet. The cafe had large windows and potted plants outside. Marisol entered and saw a table by the window with 2 cups of coffee waiting. She smiled at the familiar blue mug, just like the one he had sent her photo of. Moments later, Mateo walked in. He looked up, saw her, and his face lit with a bright grin. Marisol stood and they hugged, holding tight as if they could make up for all the months apart. She felt his warmth and remembered why she had worked so hard to stay close. They sat down and shared coffee and pastries. As they talked, they laughed and caught up on everything: new friends, city sights, and small triumphs. Mateo showed her photos of his apartment, and the sapling she had sent that now had leaves 5 times bigger than before. After coffee, they stepped out into the busy street. Marisol held the painted box she had carried. She opened it, showing the tiny clay treehouse model inside. Mateo's eyes grew wide. He lifted it carefully and said, "I kept this on my shelf every day." Marisol felt tears of joy as they shared the little treasure. They decided to hang the wind chime together. They found a small public park with low branches over a bench. Mateo tied one side of the chime to a branch, and Marisol tied the other. When the breeze blew, the chime sang its gentle song. He smiled, knowing they would remember this moment forever. Nearby, there was space to plant another dogwood sapling. Marisol had carried her own small tree in a pot, a hole by the bench, and set the tree into the soil. They patted the earth around its roots and watered it with a bottle of water. The tree stood small but proud. As evening fell, they unpacked the star map app on their phones. They sat side by side on the bench and looked up. The sky darkened, and the first stars appeared. Vega shone brightly above them. They pointed and remembered all the nights they watched under separate skies, sharing the same star. Under the soft light of Vega, they spoke of their hopes for the future. They planned new adventures, building a real treehouse together, drawing more maps, and exploring beyond their hometown. Each idea felt possible because they had bridged the distance with creativity and heart. When it was time to say goodbye, Marisol felt no sadness. She held Mateo's hand and said, "Distance cannot break us." He squeezed her hand back and replied, "Human hope brought us here." They promised to keep sending gifts, messages, and visits until they could close every mile. As Marisol rode the train home late that night, she looked at her reflection in the window. She felt proud of herself. She had faced doubt and loneliness, but she had never given up. Her human spirit, bold, inventive, and hopeful, had carried her across towns and kilometers to stand beside her friend. When she reached home, she whispered goodnight to her own dogwood sapling by her window. She knew their story would grow, season after season, just like the trees they had planted. She fell asleep with a heart full of hope, certain that no distance could ever keep caring friends apart.